Hey guys, I'm finally back. I know I uploaded not too long ago, but it's been so long since I made my last traditional video. Mostly because I was vending at Midwest Fur Fest and that demanded all of my time for a bit, and then it got me sick for the whole next month and a half and I was recovering from that. By the way, I was so shocked at how many of you guys I actually got to meet there, or even just how many people have actually seen my videos in general. Like half of the people I talked to have at least seen one of my videos and that just blew my mind. And what surprised me more, I got gifts. Oh my god, look at these amazing little guys. On a side note, if you guys ever make anything for me or get into felting because of my videos, please show me what you make. Like seriously, I need to see all of your beautiful art. Okay, getting on topic here, this video is about eevees. By far the most requested things to make from you guys, but there's a twist. I made tiny scarves for all of them. Because, you know, it's winter and it's cold where I live, so they need to stay warm and cozy somehow. And it wasn't just an excuse to crochet a bunch of them for no reason at all. This was a surprisingly large video that took so long to make, so the next video I make will definitely be smaller in scope. Otherwise, I'll probably only be able to post like once or twice a year at this rate. Anyways, let's actually get started here. I have to make 8 small cat creatures, and the best way to make sure that they all keep a consistent size from each other is to start them all at the same time. So I take a ball of wool, wrap it up in yarn, and felt it down a bit. And then I do it 8 times. Then I roll up a sausage out of wool, wrap that in yarn too, and attach it to the heads. And you guessed it, I do that 8 times too. Doing them all like this at the start helps it feel a little less daunting to me when I have to make a lot of things that are similar in shape to each other. Usually this helps keep them consistent in size, but as you'll see later, the sizes I made these bases was essentially useless and they all ended up wildly different in the end. So it's sort of a placebo to make me think I'm doing this the smart way. Anyway, I pick one from the pile and this one will be Eevee. I always like to start with the head and then size everything else in proportion to that. I start with core wool to build up the general shape of the head, but not too much since I will be adding the colored wool on top and that will add a lot of bulk to it. Then I cover it in a base layer of brown. The first details I do for all of these guys are the mouths and snouts. With the mouth in place, I can now felt on the eyes. It might be a little hard to tell on camera, but I did try to do a little bit of a gradient here with different shades of brown in the eyes. Now that the face is done, I can make the ears, which is done by folding a piece of wool, felting it flat, and then stabbing the sides until they are vaguely ear-shaped. Honestly, it would have been easier to start with felt that I cut out into the shape of the ears. I think I only started doing that with the last couple. That's a huge time-saving tip for you. Use felt for flat pieces. Helps keep shapes consistent and moves things along a lot faster. I decided to try something different for the fur tufts on the head and tail. Instead of felting them out the chunky way, I take fluffy bits of the wool and felt them on loosely. Then I spray them with glue to set them and then trim them down to size after it dries. I'm still not sure how I feel about this, at least with how it looks on the tail. Overall, I think it works well enough. Next, I make all the little feet. I roll them up into thin sausages and then stuff a wire into them so that I can pose them. And of course, I had to add the toe beans. I stick the wires from the legs into the body at the right spots and felt them down loosely. I wanted him to be rolling around on his back like the baby he is. I don't usually do poses like this, so it was really trust the process for me for a long while until it finally started to look less awkward. This is why I leave the body blank until I add the legs though. The whole shape changes to accommodate for them, and it's just much easier for me to sculpt around them. I felt out a large ball for the tail. Then I stick some long wool roving to the ends to trick you into thinking it's fluffy. Then I cover the rest in brown and kind of do what I did with the head here to transition the brown into the white somewhat smoothly. I also use roving for the poofy mane. This was the best way to accommodate the scarves, honestly. I think it would have looked really weird if I felted the mane solidly and wrapped the scarf around that. Before I can call this guy done, I need to go and make the scarves. Now, this is the absolute first time I have ever done anything with crochet, and you can probably tell that by the quality of these scarves. It really made me appreciate the people that do this super well. I genuinely don't know how you guys do it. This was an absolute nightmare to get the hang of. Anyway, as you can see here, I'm just doing a lot of chain stitches. I am not the right person to learn this from, so I will be linking the video I used as a tutorial in the description. The scarf I'm doing here was actually the very last one I made, so it is also the one with the fewest mistakes. You'll see just how bad some of these are later, and you can probably guess the order that these were made in. I'm going to blame the jank on the fact that these are cat-adjacent animals and you can't keep anything looking good with them around. So it's not a skill issue, it's actually lore. Seriously though, you would not believe how many times it took me to make the very first scarf. Hell, it took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to even understand the slip knot. Don't ask me, I have no idea either. I think my brain just checked out completely and refused to absorb any new information at first. Never mind that though. Look, a reasonably acceptable object that could sort of resemble a scarf. And then I take one of them and wrap it around Eevee's poofy neck to keep him all warm and cozy. On to the next. I will be doing the eeveelutions in order by generation, so the first one will be my favorite from Gen 1, Jolteon. She starts out similarly to Eevee, just yellow and pointier. Before really shaping out the head, it helps me to elongate the body, which kind of renders my bases useless, like I said, since they were only really correctly proportioned to Eevee, which is the only different one out of all 9 of them, so I'm not sure why I did that. So they all gotta get long. With that done, I can then move on to making the head. Same process as before, just with a longer snout. This time though, I add some wool to build up the lips so that the mouth doesn't sit so flatly on the face. From here on, for most of these, I will be repeating myself a lot, so I will let it play out and pop back in when something new happens. Something new has now happened. We need to make the mane and butt fluff. I guess it's similar to Eevee again, but this time longer. I add on a lot at this stage so that I have room to trim it down later. I try my best to emulate the spiky look that Jolteon has, but I'm honestly 50-50 on whether or not using roving for this was the right choice or not. I do think the mane does look better than the tail end though. To keep it more spiky and so it doesn't get messed up over time, I'm going to be using this glue, which will hold it in place for me, and then I can trim it away, make it the right shapes and stuff. So yeah, let me go do that. Alright, freshly glued. Now I want to manipulate it a little bit so that it dries in the correct way. I'll even pinch some of the edges so that they can stay a little spiky too. Now I only sprayed a very light layer of this because too much and it will become like, you'll notice it. So if it's a light enough coat, you won't even really notice that that you use glue at all. And then we let him dry. So I just finished Jolteon, and I should have been checking the whole time, but, or at least in the beginning stages of it, but, yeah, apparently they're about the same, size. Oh well, I guess they'll all be about the same size, even though Eevee should be... Actually, Eevee's like a little bit bigger. Okay, it's okay. You know, this is just an abnormally large Eevee. That's just what we'll go with. Vaporeon is up next and starts pretty much the exact same as Jolteon. I begin to cover the head in a layer of blue and then trim away at some of the edges to adjust the shape and make it smaller since it was getting a little bit bigger than intended. I just have to pop in here and say I love the little chubby happy face she ended up with. After the head is satisfactory, I go and decapitate her. It may seem cruel, but she'll be fine, I promise. This will make it easier to add on that neck fin later. I do remember that felt exists and definitely take advantage of it for this one. I cut out the little fin shapes for the head, adjusting it as needed so that they fit the head well enough. I felted on yellow wool first for the top fin, but realized later that it actually would have been a lot easier to start with the blue lining the outside first. After that's all felted, I take my iron and flatten the fin down and trim the edges to get a cleaner finish. I do the same for the two ear fins and attach them to the head. For the neck fin, I cut out 2 pieces of felt and cover one of them in blue wool. I usually don't do this, but I just use the top piece as is and felt it down to the blue one. I do it this way because I don't want it to get too thick, and this felt I use looks good enough to use without covering it up. I trim up the edges to make it nice and clean and cover up any bits of white showing with more blue. And it is complete. Now I attach the head to the center of it and attach them both to the body. I want to point out that I didn't go with any exciting poses for these guys. That's because I wanted them all to stand on their own without needing the support from a base. Also, since they all got scarves, I thought it would be cute to just make them all look cozy and content. I also picked a lot of stereotypical cat poses that I thought would fit them. That being said, Vaporeon here is actually the only one who has a hard time standing on her own. She can with some fiddling, but it's not always perfect and it does bother me a little bit. Instead of felting out each and every ridge on the back and taking 5 years to do it, I do it the smart way and felt a long strip of dark blue along the back. After it's decently solid enough, I spray that with glue and then cut out the ridges after it dries. This was so much easier to do this way, and it looks okay in the end. And that concludes this little cutie. Flareon is next and contradicts my earlier statement about all of the eeveelutions having the same body shape. For some reason, only Flareon is different and seems to just be a bigger Eevee. So everything will be the same for the most part, just a bit stockier. I finish up the head and body, and it is looking absolutely nothing like Flareon so far. I even begin to have doubts about this whole thing and consider scrapping it. But we just gotta trust the process. I guess if you shaved a Pomeranian, it wouldn't look quite right either, so she just needs that fluff. I felt on a donut of core wool around the neck and put together a basic tail so that I have a base to start with and attach the fur to. I felt the fur on the same way I did with Jolteon and Eevee, but to the extreme. To get the layering right, I start the tail at the tip and work down, and for the mane, I start from the bottom going up. And then the little poof on her head is just a couple clumps felted on. I probably should have mentioned this before, but before you go and glue fur like this, like the spray glue on it, you should make sure it's all fluffed out and combed out beforehand, or else whatever pose it's stuck in, the glue will just kind of hold it there. So yeah, just kind of just scrape it out is what I do. Yeah, it's definitely good to do this, especially if you've been handling it a lot, because it gets matted very easily. Should also probably put the scarf on first, or at least try to. There is so much fluff in the way. Maybe it should go on top, I don't know. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think it should go on top. Okay. Freshly glued. Now, as it's drying, because the top poof is kind of shaped a certain way, I just want to, you know, just mess with it a little bit so that it dries in a very specific way. Maybe same with the tip of the tail, too. Just so it's like pointing up. Yeah, there we go. That is much better, and now it actually looks like a Flareon, but that's why we trust the process, because it always works out in the end. Most of the time. Now, I am not usually a Flareon stan, but I have to admit this one turned out super cute. Gen 2 will be very boring by comparison. Umbreon is by far the simplest out of all of them, and I don't have much to say about her without just repeating the same stuff. So I will just let this one play out. It's really hard to see what's going on anyway, since black doesn't show up super well on camera. By the way, if you want to see extended versions of me making these guys, I will have longer cuts available on my Patreon. I had to cut them down a lot due to them being a little samey, but you can see their whole process from start to finish there, as well as other work in progresses, tutorials, and other stuff I don't post anywhere else. So you know, if that's your jam, then that link for that will be in the description below. While I'm on the topic, I might as well keep shilling. If you happen to be in the market for one of these funny looking cat things, they will all be available to buy when this video goes up. Just saying. Okay, enough for that. You're here for Eevees. Back to felting. So, Espeon here is already completed. She was actually the one who kicked off the whole idea for this video. She was intended to be a Secret Santa gift that I actually learned how to crochet for. And of course, I didn't record any of it because I was working on her while I was vending at the con. So yeah, nothing to show here either. This is her before she got shipped off to the other side of the country though. On to Gen 4, the best generation. Next is Glaceon, the surprise villain of this video. I thought this one would be a cakewalk due to how simple she is, but I was wrong. I underestimated her potential, and it wasn't even anything major either. Just a series of small annoyances that really had me questioning a lot of things. Starting off, it was business as usual, and everything was going alright so far. Looking at the face some more, I didn't like how the eyes were positioned, so instead of ripping them off and redoing them like a normal person, I stubbornly try to fix them by cutting underneath them and physically moving them around. With all the work that's going into this, to try to fix this, it probably would have just been easier to just redo the eyes. Which turned out to be for nothing because I redid them anyway. Sometimes things are just a lost cause and you gotta admit defeat and start over. And that is why we restart. I like this a lot better. For her little hair dealies she's got, I actually start with the felt like I mentioned already to make the process easier. I will also be putting wire inside these so that I compose them better and they don't end up all floppy. Though there wasn't really a reason for me to bend them like this. It just kind of made it worse to deal with. I add wool to the front side of the pieces first before adding the wire since it would be really annoying to felt around. And it still is really annoying to felt around just to attach it. The worst part is I didn't even need to do this, and I could have gotten away with just shoving the wire in after felting it, which is my much preferred and less frustrating method. Once those are done, I cut slits in the head for the wires to slide into and felt the pieces down. Then to finish off the hair, I start with a bump made from core wool to give me some point to start from. Then I felt the little points at the top and add more blue to finish shaping it out. During this, I once again am not happy with the eyes, so I add more light blue to shrink them down a bit, which, again, huge improvement in my opinion, and I think I needed the hair to see that they were just way too big before. I noticed that the head was a little large in the back too, so I carved that down and add back the light blue to finally finish this head, which took far longer than it should have to complete. Now for the legs, which, unfortunately for me, have socks. This makes it a little more annoying to make than the previous Eevees, so I'm super excited to say that all three of the remaining ones also have socks. The difference in process here is that I will start with core wool instead of the leg color, and then I put the correct colors on top. I do it like this so that the whole leg is all one uniform shape. While it's possible to pull off starting with how I was doing it for all the others and adding the socks on top, in my experience it just ends up looking uneven and not good. But maybe that's just a skill issue on my part, who knows? Point is, I personally don't like doing it this way. You can probably see here that the issue with starting with a core wool base for a thin piece like this is that it has to be significantly smaller than the intended end goal, or else it will just end up getting really fat. So I need to try to strike a balance by trimming away some and adding it back until I get to the right spot. Now that the legs are finally workable, I attach them to the body so that I can finish that up. I try out a pose here that I thought would be simple, but it turns out was actually giving me a lot of problems. I guess that's in character for Glaceon so far. So I spend way too long repositioning the legs, adding wool, cutting away wool, and re-adding it back until it finally starts to look okay. This one also had major trust the process vibes, and I nearly gave up on it a couple times, but I made it work in the end, through sheer brute force. Now with the legs and body done, I just need to make the tail. Similarly to the hair, I started with pre-felt, but this time I finished the whole tail and then stuck the wire in. See, I learned from my mistakes. Still was annoying to make the wire work, but it did, and that's all that matters. We stick that guy on, and finally she is done. I did not expect Glaceon to be one of the most challenging ones out of all of them, but here we are, I guess. This one took the longest to finish by far, and also broke the most needles somehow. So let's leave this behind us and move on to greener pastures. Literally greener. Finally, we get to Leafeon, the best one. Again, he starts out like all the others, so no need to go over all that again. For the ears, I do what I should have done with all the others and use pre-felt for them. Better yet, I used one that was as close to the wool color as possible. It's better this way because I have to cut out slits later, and if I use the white felt, then it would show on the edges that I cut out, and I didn't want to have to deal with covering that back up. It's also good to do this so that the felt fibers don't poke through the other side and make it look weird and messy. It being the same color makes it hard to notice. Before I finish the fluff on the head, I go on to finish the rest of the body first. This is so it doesn't get messed up from being touched too much, which would inevitably happen while trying to figure out the leg situation. Luckily, the legs this time went much better than it did for Glaceon, since the pose was very simple and straightforward. After the legs and body are fully sculpted, I can now add the little leafy furry bits, which I took the easy route and just cut out the shapes from felt and used them as is. I wanted them to stay thin, which is why I did it that way, not because I was lazy. No, absolutely not. Now we get to the tail, which I also cut from felt after drawing out a stencil for it first. But I cut out two identical shapes instead of one like I did for Glaceon. I did this because I can hide the wire a lot better this way, but it also helps keep the gigantic thing stable enough to stand upright. Though the wire would also help out with that too, I guess. Either way, primary reason is I get to interact with the wire less, and that's a win for me. Anyway, I cover only one side of both pieces in the green and yellow and add on the veins of the leaves. I only do one side since they'll be sandwiched together later, and it also keeps them a little bit thinner overall. On one of the pieces, I left the edges fluffy so that it will make attaching to the other half easier. With both together, I iron it down as flat as I can and then trim the edges to make them nice and angular. And it's done! I attach that to the butt and can now finish off this guy with his head fluff. Lucky for me, the roving I have is almost identical in color to the wool I've been using, so this pretty seamlessly blends into the head. Like before, add a whole bunch on, spray some glue, and cut it down to size. I'm not sure I perfectly nailed how it's supposed to look, but I think it looks good enough. Now we add on the final leaf piece and his little scarf, and the best Eevee is now complete. Now, you may look at Sylveon and think, wow, the last one will be a piece of cake. His design is so simple, but you would be wrong. I've been dreading this one since the very beginning for one reason. Ribbons. Long, thin, posed so I need to put wire in them, and just to be mean to me specifically, multicolored on the ends. This one detail strikes fear into me, so much so that I stalled and started doing cross-stitch instead. Pancakes. But I know I must be strong and power through it. I think at this point I was also getting fatigued after making 8 almost identically shaped creatures by now, so this one was looking much worse by default. Okay, you know the drill, it's the same as all the others. Nothing particularly of note that I haven't talked about already, so let's get that body made. Well, actually, I do make the mouth differently here. I cut out a cavity for the mouth, fill in the insides with color, and then add the lips back on in the end to outline the mouth. We now have a nearly complete Sylveon, and I have to make the part I don't want to do. As much as the cross stitch over there beckons me, I gotta just do it. I cut out 4 strips of white felt to start with. To make it slightly easier on myself, I cut out the ends in blue so that I don't have any of the white showing through when I felt them. And these pieces are super thin, so it definitely would show through. Honestly, for that reason, I probably should have done it to the stripes too, but you know, it just didn't happen. I felt on the blue wool just enough to cover the ends and then attach them to the white parts. Then I add on the pink and blue stripes to each. Before any wires get involved, I want to attach a layer of white to one side first, leaving the edges fluffy. When they're all prepped, I cut a slit into the colored ends so that I can anchor the wire down with some glue. I carefully fold the wool over the wire and felt it down just enough to secure it. As you can see, it wasn't enough to cover the wire completely, so now begins the very painful process of covering it up with more wool, all while trying to keep the shape and thickness consistent and flat, and trying to not hit the wire with my needle. Predictably, I end up hitting the wires quite a lot actually, which is why I'm utterly shocked that I didn't actually break any needles doing this for any of the ribbons. How did Glaceon have more of a body count than Sylveon? It was still painful though. Every time it hit the wire, I felt a pure ache in my soul. But hey, look at that, it's done now. Now I just need to iron them flat and trim up the edges a bit and stick them onto the body and head. Finally, I add on the bows and the final scarf, and that's all of them finished, and we can go take a look at the final results. And maybe I can finally make something different now.